Hello, everyone. We have come to the last module of our class in facilitating learning, and this is on assessment strategies that can increase motivation. You will be taking at least three subjects on assessment before you graduate, and it is a very important aspect of the whole education process. So, here, our module will only focus on how assessment can be a strategy on how to increase the motivation of your students. So, we shall not discuss details, principles of assessment and procedures, but we will just focus on it as a way to motivate your students. But of course, it's important to define what assessment is. It's the process of gathering information about the student's learning, then analyzing and interpreting them for the purpose of making decisions. Okay, so it's all about gathering information. That's why you make them take tests, exams, you observe them, or you can even what rate their work, look at their work, evaluate their work. So it's about gathering information about what they have gained, whether they have achieved your objectives in your lessons, and then we analyze and interpret this. We report this, we provide grades as a way to report to them. Okay. And the basis is really for making decisions. Will the student pass the subject? Will the student have to repeat the project? Will the student have to uh, get a failing grade? No? Okay, so decisions are made regarding the performance of the student based on assessment. Okay, so assessment, of course, have different purposes like diagnosis. You give a certain set of assessment tools, you administer it. If you want to know whether a certain person may have some special needs, that would be diagnosis. And then placement is based on the results of the assessment. We are able to make decision on where to place the student. Example, will the student go to the advanced class, or like in preschool there's the head start for gifted preschoolers. Okay, so that would be placement. What program will be appropriate for the child? Then, of course, assessment can be used for evaluation of the effectiveness of the program. You get to see whether the program work based on the level of performance that the students would have. And one of the most common purpose is student feedback. How would the students know how well they did, how whether they learned the skill and how much they learned the skills. So we assess them so that they would know and we can communicate to them about their performance. And the last, of course, is about research. We use assessment, we use the results in order to um, use them as information or as data in researches. Okay, as I have mentioned, our focus really is the use of assessment strategies, no, that can increase motivation. So we will discuss practical tips on how to do this. How can assessment increase motivation? Okay, so the first one is make the objectives clear to the students. So assessment is very much related to curriculum implementation. So, in the beginning, we have to make sure that the objectives of our lessons are clear because this is also what we would check against. No? This will be our basis for assessing whether our students obtain success. No? So, the objectives serve as the success criteria, And it's important to let your students know how they're going to be assessed, so that way they will be motivated to really achieve those objectives. Okay, so because it's very difficult if the students feel that, what will teacher, it's not so clear, no, what will teacher grade in us, what would be the basis. So it has to be clear from the beginning. Next, make your students own the lesson objectives. It is very important that they feel that they want to achieve the target. It's important to explain to them why it is important that they achieve the objectives. That's why with you, I would always say, so that when you become future teachers, you'll be able to do this and do that. Because when when the learners know that they're going to use what they will learn and why they have to learn it, then they would be more motivated to achieve your objectives. Next is engage your students in self-assessment. So it's very good if from the beginning the students apply metacognition, and part of this is really asking themselves, have I met my target? Huh? Remember, in metacognition there are task variables, and because the student knows the task, then the student will also think of strategies to accomplish the tasks. So part of this is really asking, did I do it? Did I do it well? Was I able to um, achieve the objective? Okay, so it's good to involve even preschoolers. They are already exposed to the idea of asking themselves, did I do well? No, and they use these different levels of smileys. So the teacher will say, okay, um, what would you how would you rate your work, and then the children will choose the smiley, whether it's just like um not really smiling to that's really smiling, no? So it's also leveled into five, and the 5-year old can shade or can check which of these he or she is giving to her work. Okay, so it's very good even for young children, and later on in the grader, no? My daughter experienced this from grade 1. They are asked to also rate their work and grade their work. And they develop it as really an objective way of looking at their performance. And they're very honest and very direct about doing self assessment. So it encourages one, not just because the teacher will grade it, but because they themselves want to do their best. Next is practice criterion reference assessment rather than norm reference assessment. So when you say criterion reference, you really have a set of standards, a set of criteria to score the work of your or to assess the work of your students. When you say norm reference, the basis is a sort of like a comparison among the group's performance, no, the individual's performance in a group, and it has been found that criterion reference is the one that motivates students better, no? Because they have a standard that they have to meet. And in norm reference, usually students have the feeling that they are being compared with each other, and sometimes or a lot of times the teachers or even the school would have policies where they rank the students' performance, and they rank the students. So I have discussed this before. It does not motivate the whole class. Sometimes it just motivates the very good ones because they are trying to get the top slot. No? So here we say, for the first example, say, I'll give Mike an A grade because his term paper is longer. B for Mika because her work is short. Something like this. Of course, this should not be taken literally, but it just telling us that the basis of the teacher is looking into the performance of the students and sort of like comparing them. No? And this will not be very motivating for the students. On the other side, the teacher says Mika's term paper may be short, but it satisfied the scoring criteria. So she's not comparing it with anyone or the performance of the group, but she is scoring it based on a criteria, and that is criterion reference. Next, assessment is certainly based on established criterion, your learning target or objective. So similar to the first one, we put together the criteria because we have certain objectives that we want to accomplish. So it's very objective, very systematic. Next is inspire your students to have mastery focus rather than performance focus. So again, this if the students know the objectives, they it becomes their goal to really be able to do it, to perform it well, no? And not because it will be graded, but they obtain mastery. Okay, so let's not be confused with that now when we say focus on mastery rather than performance. But of course, when you assess them, they would have to perform the skill, but they're not doing it just for that one performance or just to do well on that particular test. Their focus really is to be able to master the skill such that what is in their minds is they can apply it later on. Remember our discussion on transfer of learning. The the main point is that they obtain mastery, they can do the skill, they have the knowledge or they have developed the attitude, and that it will be transferred or it will be applied when they are in the situation where they need to do it. Okay, and then have a growth mindset. We know that our learners may not always achieve the objectives right away, but we do not let them feel that it is impossible, that they are unable to do it. Assessment should be able to tell well where they are and that they can do better. Huh? So it's not a point of being impossible, but we communicate the results of assessments so that they will say, I'm possible. And your assessment practice must be sensitive and constructive, related also to the one that we just had, because assessment has an emotional impact. So it should never be something that would make them feel bad, make them feel that they can't do it anymore, no, or that they are not good enough, but it's really telling them that this is where you are right now and let us see what you need to do, uh what you need to work on, and encouraging the student that if they apply other strategies and if they work harder, then they'll be able to also master the skills. Okay, so don't make the test too difficult to discourage students, nor too easy to make them complacent. No? So if it's too difficult, maybe it's not based on what was taken in class, or maybe they were not given exercises that would prepare them to meet what the teacher placed in the exam. So that will really discourage the student, no? So but don't make it too easy, as also it will no longer motivate them to work hard on your test. So it must be something that's really based on the objectives and something that will really provide challenge, but also lead to success. And then, as we said, it's very important to communicate feedback, to communicate results and give feedback. This is one purpose of assessment. So it's very necessary for the teacher to give feedback on the student's work. Okay. And of course, um in a very timely way, because that really increases the motivation of the students, whether you say yes I did well, or maybe okay, so I still need to work on this, and the student remains motivated to do better next time. Okay, so assessment is an important facet, as I mentioned, of the education process. And aside from all the technical side of assessment, assessment is also vital in motivating our students. So be sure that you, later on when you learn all the principles, be sure that you apply them, not only to be very fair and really communicate the results well, but that remembering that assessment is is a very um, powerful motivational tool for your students. Okay?